today's presentation is going to give you insight into thinking a little bit more strategically about content marketing beyond the kind of the normal conversation of, search engine optimization or infographics and video and whatnot. So when we think about content marketing, it's a lot more holistic and a lot more strategic than just a tactical kind of thinking around optimizing keywords to show up #1 in Google.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's exactly what we're hoping to get out of this presentation. So we're looking forward to it, Michael. So
great.
I think if Lauren has got you queuing up here. Hold on one second. Lauren, do we just change presenter to Michael?
Yep, there we go. All right. Can you see my screen?
Sure can.
Awesome. All right, so I will get started, and I'm going to talk kind of fast because we have 30 minutes, 25 now, but I want to talk about kind of the operational acumen of content marketing. But before I get into that, let's talk about a few key trends that are shaping today's marketplace. The first one is we live in a multi-screen economy, and I think we can all attest to this. We all probably have, at a minimum, 3 devices. I personally have 5. But Google just released a study in 2012 that talks about the multi-screen usage. They talk about sequential usage and simultaneous usage of mobile screens, and even including TV and laptops. And the truth of the matter is that we have and we all suffer from ADD, and I say that jokingly, because we're constantly on our devices. We're Googling stuff during commercials. We're reading content. We're not paying attention to one thing at one given time. We're multitasking. We're doing a lot of different things at a lot of different times simultaneously. So that is one truth that's shaping today's environment. The second truth is that we're dynamic. Our journey is dynamic. We wake up every morning and we do something different. I personally sleep with my phone, and I roll over when the alarm clock goes off, and I check my notifications. Who's tweeted at me? Who's loved one of my photos on Instagram? Who's left me a message on Facebook? Then I do emails last. But all of our behaviors are different each day, and as we travel through the ecosystem of media, we put up filters so that we only consume the content that's relevant to us at a given time. So, quick example: 6 years ago, I was looking to refinance my home, and I noticed advertisements on billboards. I heard radio advertisements. I saw display ads of Quicken Loans and their competitors trying to entice me to click through and purchase one of their loans. The minute that I refinanced my home, those ads, they all went away. And the truth is they didn't go away because my filters went back up because it wasn't relevant to me anymore. I just refinanced my home. So this is a problem for marketers. The third piece is communications is real time. Right? This is an example of the Tahrir Square in 2010 during the Arab Spring, where in the morning you had 9 a.m. it was completely empty, minus the few vehicles that are kind of going around the loop. In the afternoon, by 4 or 5 o'clock, it was packed with millions of people. And the University of Washington did a study and analyzed the tweets that led up to this demonstration. And 2 days prior to this demonstration, tweets, comments, blog posts, videos, etc., coming out of this region, there were about 2,300 per day. The day leading up to this and the day of this demonstration, there were 230,000 tweets, comments, blog posts, etc. So it shows you that communication is more than just marketing, right? It can move crowds. It can cause revolutions. The last one is everyone has influence, right? You've probably gone into a Starbucks or Pete's Coffee, and you've seen somebody on Facebook and Twitter and just kind of tweeting and blogging, and they're tweeting and they're talking about their experiences that they're having about a given brand in real time. So they may only have 100 followers, but they're still influencing those 100 people based on their experience. And despite all of that, from a business perspective, whether you're a small business or a large brand, you still have business objectives, right? You still have to sell products. You still have to increase market share. You still have to increase mind share or decrease cost and decrease or increase customer loyalty. These are all important. So despite what's happening in the ecosystem, It doesn't matter. You still have to focus on your business. So that's challenging. But if you think about the ecosystem and kind of where we are today, and just this is a graphic I pulled. It's about 4 or 5 years old. So it's certainly, but it's still relevant today because this slide is meant to represent the fact that there were so many people in the early days that said, wow, customers of influence and brands need to join the conversation. So brands eventually listened and they realized, yes, we do need to join the conversation. We do need to create a Facebook page and a Twitter account and an Instagram and LinkedIn and MySpace back then and Friendster and all those others. And they were influenced by everybody telling them that they needed to join the conversation. The problem is that they jumped into social media thinking it was this bright and shiny object and they didn't plan. The end result is this. Right, so this is a study by the Altimeter Group that shows that companies on average have 178 social media channels. Now that's crazy. Now going back to this whole idea of content, if you have 178 social media channels, how are you by God going to create enough content to engage with customers? I would even bet that some of these 178 channels, in fact 95% of these channels are disjointed, they're abandoned, nobody even cares about them. So, and just to remind you, I'm going to try to finish up a little early so there are time for questions. Thank you for reminding me, Lauren. But from a content perspective, even if you work for a large brand like Coke or McDonald's, you're not going to have enough people, enough brain power, enough creative thinking to create content to put into 178 channels. So there's chaos, right? There's chaos in the ecosystem because companies didn't think strategically about jumping in, and it's caused a lot of internal business challenge. I'm only going to talk about 3, but there's a lot more. The first one is employees' inappropriate use of social media. How many times has somebody got fired for saying something on Twitter or Facebook that they shouldn't have? It happens all the time. There's also internal confusion of roles and responsibilities, right? If I were to ask people on the phone, does social media sit in PR or sit in marketing or sit in customer support, you would all have a different answer. Internally, they have no idea who's responsible for what. The third one is disjointed content and community practices. Because you have so many communities, because you have so many Facebook pages and Twitter accounts and all that, it's disjointed. There's no message. There's no engagement. There's no frequency of content being shared. There's no thought behind the content that you're sharing. So that's a huge problem. So I want to spend just a couple minutes on talking about social business strategy, because if you think about operationalizing your content marketing, you need to do that having a cohesive infrastructure built. And that's what social business does. It's a blueprint. It's an infrastructure that helps manage and helps scale, helps identify roles and responsibilities within the organization that will better help you communicate with your customers outside of the organization. So when we think about social business, it has to be a value exchange. So when we think about value, there has to be value to customers, right? You have to provide them with engaging content. You have to also take some of their feedback and take some of their ideas and innovate your business, innovate your products. There has to be a two-way exchange. If you look at 1 and 2, it's a cycle, right? So you're communicating value, they're communicating value. It's a two-way value proposition. Internally, it's the same thing, 3 and 4, right? As a business, you're collaborating with employees. You're enabling them to be kind of employee advocates. That's very important. And in return, they are helping you with improving process, with innovating products, and they're actually communicating with customers on your behalf. So, personally, I trust people who work for a company than the company itself. It's just we relate to human beings, right? That's kind of the nature of our DNA. So we relate to employees because they're real people. They're not just some logo or some corporate entity. So there has to be value across the entire ecosystem of stakeholders. Stakeholders include employees, customers, and partners. And if you think about this from a brand perspective, right, on the upper left-hand corner, social brand, we do this all pretty well, right? We communicate, we do community management, we do customer support, we do, communications and events and campaigns and crisis communications. That's all fine and dandy. The infrastructure is the light gray piece. That's what we've been talking about. It's the training, it's the process, it's the collaboration, it's building the right teams within the right models so that you can, communicate effectively. You can communicate effectively. It's collaborating. It's changing your culture. It's making sure that the leadership is bought into your vision. So this is meant to illustrate the differences of social business and how it can enable better content. It can enable better customer service. It can enable better events and better campaigns, and it'll enable better brand advocacy programs. So that's kind of the piece, and that's what social business is. So when we think about kind of this transformation into a media company, and that's what operationalizing your content marketing is. It's transforming brand marketing into that of a media company. Think of like the Huffington Post, think of the New York Times, think of Mashable. These are companies that provide extremely relevant and recent content, and they're touching you in the mobile experience. They're touching you on Facebook and Twitter. You probably hear people, or you probably see people on Twitter sharing content from these local publications. As a business, you need to start thinking that way, realizing that you do have business objectives, right? A media company wants to sell ads, right? They want to sell impressions. You still need to sell products. So keeping that on the top of mind, but from a content perspective, thinking about operationalizing it so that you can be more like a media company, right? Okay. So the first thing, number one, if you're taking notes, and I'll make these slides available as well, establish a team. Right, an editorial team. Now, you don't have to change people's job descriptions. These are just kind of extra roles and responsibilities that they'll have. And so you create an editorial team, and you have people from IT, you have the social media teams on there, analytics, customer support, maybe your campaign marketing team is on it, because from an editorial perspective, you need to kind of be that brand voice, right? You're going to approve content. You are going to send content back for people to approve. You're going to need analytics to see, what current content that's in market today on your Facebook page or Twitter account or your blogs, seeing what content is driving the most engagement, what's driving the most page views, which is getting the most clicks, how about links to your website, all that great stuff. So you need to have analytics, you need to have IT involved, because they're the ones who are going to either build a platform for you, or they're going to help you identify the right platform to invest in. A few platforms could be Kapost or Cadence 9 or Compendium. These are kind of content marketing platforms. Contently is another one that allow you to build in these controls, which will serve as kind of governance of posting content before it actually goes live. So establishing a team. The second piece is, what is your narrative? What is your content strategy? So let's take a look at this first column, right? This is kind of your product benefits, right? If you work for a computer manufacturer, your benefit could be low cost, or it's slim, or long battery life. These are kind of the messages that are on your website, right? You don't want to share that on your Facebook page. We don't care if it's slim. We want the story. We want the narrative around that. But part of your input is that brand positioning. You also want to add the second column. The second column is third-party research, right? What are your competitors doing? How are they positioning themselves in the marketplace? You also want to look at the community and media perceptions. How do they perceive your brand? How do they talk about your brand? How does the New York Times or a local publication reference your brand when they write stories? When the community leaves comments on your wall, what are they saying? Right, so that's an input, right? It's important to understand how they view your brand. Then you want to look at content and analytics. What type of content is working? Is it videos? Is it imagery? Is it third-party content? Is it user stories? Then you want to look at search behavior. When people are searching for not necessarily your brand, but your vertical. If you're a small business, dry cleaners, how are people searching for dry cleaning? Is it dry cleaning? Is it laundry? I don't know what it is, but taking that into consideration, and you add those two things, and then you get hero content. This is the story, right? This is what you're going to use as your narrative to kind of weave in and out of your status updates and your tweets and your blog posts. Okay, so establish the brand narrative. The third piece is build a real-time listening center. Now, a lot of people call them command centers. This is Hootsuite's listening center for the election. They just did one for the Super Bowl, and just as a quick point, Hootsuite is a client of Edelman, so just to be honest. But you want to build a listening center, not necessarily for crisis and customer support. Those are important. Those are definitely important. But a listening center can help you identify trends. And if you look at what Oreo did during the Super Bowl halftime when the power went out, they were quick. They created this pretty awesome image that says, you can still dunk Oreos in the dark, right? Because they were listening to the conversation. They knew what was happening from a trend perspective, either in sports or in pop culture, and they were able to insert themselves into the conversation in real time. That was a big win for them. Then you want to assign roles and responsibilities. So if you work for a large multinational brand, you may have regional editors who sit in Latin America, in South America, or EMEA or APAC or North America, and you have, they're responsible for finding contributors. These contributors could be employees of your firm. These contributors could be third party, paid journalists. These contributors could be, people within the community, and you establish roles and responsibilities or find who is going to feed that content engine, right? So it's going to vary depending upon how big or how small your company is, but you want to document those regional roles and responsibilities. The second piece is you want to create the fifth piece, my apologies, is you want to create workflows, right? So when you think about from content ideation to content creation to approving content to then distribution of the content, and let's take it one step further, optimizing content once it's live, what does that workflow look like? Here's a quick example of what it could look like, right? Where and the thing is you do need, and I'm going to go to the last piece, you do need a piece of technology that can help facilitate some of those workflows. Okay, so upper left-hand corner, these are your traditional content marketing platforms. On the upper right, you have your social CRM, enterprise level content management systems or CRM systems like Spreadfast and Sprinkler, Hootsuite Enterprise that have built-in workflows to help you achieve your goals. Bottom right-hand corner, you have these advocate platforms, right? These are platforms that will help you build advocacy programs with the result of using some of their content as part of your content marketing strategy. Then the bottom left-hand matrix or quadrant is platforms that help identify curated content, like Percolate, Curata, Publish This. What they do is they can up-level content that won't be about your brand, but it'll be about your vertical and help you share that within your platform. Social Flow is a interesting platform that does optimization of content once it's already live and pushing that organic content into paid media or promoted posts. So I've touched on a lot in 25 minutes, but this is a framework that you can use for your business, whether it's small, medium, or large, and start thinking about something actionable, right? These are things that you need to start thinking about that will help move you away from brand messaging into being something more like a content marketing engine or media company. So with that said, we have about 8 minutes, and I went through this really quick, Ty. We went through, we have 8 minutes for questions. My email address is right there. My Twitter account is also in the bottom right-hand corner, so I can definitely follow up with you afterward. But yeah, I guess we can open it up for questions. Ty, do you want to facilitate that, or is it you, Kevin?
Sure.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions for you, Michael.
Okay.
The first question, and these aren't in any particular order, so is how do you get buy-in for putting in a process such as you've described?
Sure. Sometimes, and I hate to say it, you just got to do it. Right. So, I've been married for 10 years. Actually, no, I've been married 14 years. Wow, I don't hope my wife's not listening. And I've learned sometimes you just got to do it and beg for forgiveness, right? In some cases, you do it that way, but you got to be smart about it. You got to put a strategy together. And you may not need executive level support. Maybe just get those from your manager to cover your basis, right? And show something that works. And when it works and when it increases efficiencies, when it helps drive better content, better engagement, better analytics, then you take it to your C-suite and say, look, this is what we've done. We need your support to broaden this across the entire organization outside of just our group.
Thank you, Michael. That's a great answer. And I think this next question kind of ties in with that question. And it is, how do you assign roles for the workflow when you have a smaller department?
Well, maybe if that might be easier. I mean, if you have a small department, I mean, the truth is sometimes it's easier to work in smaller groups than it is larger groups. So, you know, in that case, if it's 1 or 2 people, it'd be much easier to collaborate. You might not need a full blown out workflow, just a general understanding of, you know, your team members and what their roles are, and then putting a process together. I think the hard part is going to be finding the right technology that can facilitate that, because you can't do this via email. It just does not work that way.
And actually, that was one of the next questions, Michael, and that is, how do you select the best platform for your organization?
I mean, you got to look at budget, right? I mean, some of these platforms range from $500 a month, depending upon how many users there are, to $15,000 a month. So, I mean, even one vendor that I didn't add that I think is really good for small business is SayItSocial. They're based out of Chicago, and they do have a pretty robust kind of platform for content. They don't publish to blogs. I think that might be in their roadmap. But, you know, you want to look at cost. They're like $100 a month, but look at cost. And then look at, you know, if you have a very strict set of requirements, go to these vendors and say, here's our requirements. Can you meet these requirements? Don't change your requirements based on their capabilities. Make them, they're all startups. They all want to make sure that they're providing value. They will build in those requirements for you. But don't change your requirements.
So, Michael, that leads us to another question, and that is, what can you outsource and what should you keep in-house?
I work for an agency, so I would say outsource it all. No, I'm kidding. No, I think I'm joking. You know, outsourcing is interesting. I mean, you know, I've heard people say, you know, you can't outsource community management because they don't know the brand. But I would say in some cases, you know, customers and third-party people know the brand better than people who work in for the brand, because they have that one-way thinking, right? So it depends. It definitely has to be a partnership, right? If you have a budget to hire an agency, find the right one. Find the one that's going to be a strategic partner with you. If you want to be the strategy and have them have an agency do the execution, there are agencies that do that. If you want a person that's going to help you create strategy, then there are agencies that do that. So I think it depends on what you want, what you're budgeted for. But there's a lot of small good agencies. You know, SayItSocial is a great agency that does a lot of the strategy and execution. You know, if you have, you know, a lot of money to spend, I would say, you know, the Edelmans of the world, or the, you know, if it's a brand, Goodbees of the world. So it just depends what you're comfortable with. As long as you're involved, you don't want to just, you know, outsource your social media and never be involved. You need to like be there, provide guidance, provide feedback, and be able to, you know, course correct if you need to. Because some agencies will just kind of take it over, and you know, you have, you know, if you're not connected with them or involved, you know, 6 months down the line, it could be going in the wrong direction.
And we got one final question, and that is, once you have a plan in place, how often should you look at updating it?
You know, I would just say, commit to a plan for 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, if it's working, commit to it for another 6 months. If it's not, iterate, right? Get some new thinking involved. Put together a new plan and just adjust. But in some cases, you may be adjusting weekly or daily, depending upon the external market, depending upon your business. You may have to get reorganized if you're a large company, or you might get acquired, or you might acquire somebody else. So these are all kind of factors that you need to consider. So, but if you're a smaller company, I would say, you know what, commit to it for 6 months, and then in 6 months, go back to it. Did you achieve your goals? Did you get what you wanted to do? If not, iterate, and then maybe do it quarterly after that.
Great, Michael. Those were awesome. I think as we have other questions, we've got your email, and we can send people over to you.
Absolutely. Or, you know, we'll just use the SayItSocial hashtag or tweet me, and I can certainly, I need to head to a meeting actually, but today I will certainly get back to any questions I have. But shoot me an email. Would love to take, you know, to provide any insight that I possibly can.
Michael, thank you so very much. We look forward to hearing more about your travels, and this has been an enlightening presentation. So this will be available on SlideShare, perhaps?
I'll send it to you, and you can add it. I mean, if you want to post it, I can definitely put it on SlideShare. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, if you send it to us, Lauren, we'll take care of the rest.
Excellent.
But thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. You were great as usual.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, Ty.
Thanks, Michael. All right, everybody, that was a fantastic program, and that does kind of bring to a conclusion this month's show. So next month, we will be having Jacob Morgan with Chess Media. So that's going to be quite a very interesting um, topic. So that's going to be March 14th. And we are glad that you could join us, and we're going to sign off now until next time, next month. Thanks again for joining Say It Social Live. Take care, everybody.